Her name was Sarah. She was a peptase. Okay, her name's not Sarah, and she's not a peptase, but it just seemed like it was worth saying. Anyway, I'm talking about serrapeptase. Serrapeptase is a proteolytic enzyme, okay, which means it breaks down protein. It destroys protein. Not always a bad thing, okay? Let me break it down a little bit more on what serrapeptase is and what it's derived from, because it's really freaking weird. Okay, serrapeptase is an enzyme that is pulled from the Serratia species of bacteria that is inside the intestinal tract of a silkworm. If that's not random, I don't know what the heck is. But the fact is, there's some legit science that is showing that serrapeptase is amazing when it comes to recovery and when it comes to reducing inflammation. Here's the crazy thing and how it works. So because it's proteolytic, it means that it breaks down protein. It degrades protein, which may sound like a bad thing, but it's not talking about dietary protein. We're talking about non-living tissue. And how this works is quite interesting, and I'm going to break it down in some exquisite detail. But one more thing that's really interesting to note, serrapeptase can geotarget where you have inflammation because it binds to what is called the macroglobulin inside your blood plasma. So that means it's protected from your immune system. Normally your immune system is going to attack enzymes and things like that. Well, the fact that it binds to a globulin means that it travels to the source where you need it the most. In layman's terms, what that means is if you have inflammation in the wrist and you take some serrapeptase, because it's binding to the plasma, it's going to deliver to that area and actually help reduce inflammation site specifically. But the way that serrapeptase works is a little bit different from what you might think. You see, it doesn't just break down protein tissue. It breaks down non-living protein tissue and only non-living protein tissue, which means the non-living protein tissue that would normally start clogging up your blood or clogging up fluid when you have inflammation. So therefore, by breaking down that protein, by breaking down that thickness that's clogging, it can allow fluid to expedite and leave. It can leave inflammation. So therefore, you're actually able to flush and get rid of inflammation faster than if you weren't taking serrapeptase. There's a lot of studies to back that up. I'm going to get to them in just a minute. But there's another thing that serrapeptase does in conjunction with that, and that is reducing something that's called bradykinin. That bradykinin is something that instigates pain. Okay, so now, let's say you have a swollen knee. You take some serrapeptase, it binds to the macroglobulin, which means it gets to the right source of pain and right source of inflammation. Okay, then the serrapeptase helps reduce the inflammation by squeezing the fluid out and thinning it out. But then it also starts to reduce the pain by eliminating that bradykinin. That's pretty powerful right there. Not only do you have a painkiller, but you have something that's reducing inflammation as well. The way that serrapeptase works is it works on something called fibrin. Okay, fibrin is a specific protein that clogs arteries, and it's usually bound up in the digestive tract as well. It's non-living proteins that are bound up. Serrapeptase acts directly on that fibrin. Basically, in short, if you can keep your fibrin levels under control, you can usually keep chronic inflammation or even acute inflammation and honestly even heart conditions at bay. So serrapeptase has some unique little benefits when it comes to injuries, when it comes to heart disease, and recovery in general. But now some science. This study took 3 groups of 66 patients that were post-op after upper ankle surgery relating to a rupture of the lateral ligament. Okay, what that means is that they took 3 groups that just finished surgery. One of the groups they gave serrapeptase to. Not only did this one group that took serrapeptase have an instant reduction in pain that was very dramatic, they had a 50% reduction in inflammation 3 days post-operative compared to the other 2 groups. So we have clinical human evidence that serrapeptase reduces inflammation at the site. And it all comes down to reducing those rogue proteins that are running through the body, clogging things up. But there's more. Okay, when it comes to cardiovascular disease, serrapeptase plays a big impact as well. You see, plaque that's in our arteries is usually composed of fat, cholesterol, fibrin, and other rogue proteins. So do the math. If serrapeptase starts to break down the fibrin, starts to break down those non-living tissues, then you can start getting more blood flow. Start reducing the risk of atherosclerosis and potentially myocardial infarction or a heart attack. Pretty powerful stuff right then and there. Now, I can't overemphasize enough that serrapeptase only breaks down non-living proteins. You can't sprinkle it on your enemies or people that you don't like and they won't just disappear. It's only going to work on non-living tissues and that fibrin. Then there's one more thing that was extremely interesting, and this is still sort of in study, and that's the effect of serrapeptase on ear, nose, and throat infections. Why is this interesting? Because who doesn't suffer with an ear, nose, and throat issue, at least when it comes to cold and flu season? If we can geo-target and reduce inflammation when it comes to the common cold, we can potentially reduce the effects of a runny nose, reduce the effect of that stuffy nose, of a sore throat, all while using some funky little enzyme that's found in the bacteria of a funky little intestine of a funky little silkworm. Again, I cannot overemphasize how freaking weird that is, but this stuff is no joke. But there's enough clinical science to convince me that it's something that I want to start adding into my regimen. So as always, keep it locked in here in my videos, keep it locked in here on my pet silkworm, and I will see you in the next video.